evening, Gabby.
Good evening, TC, and welcome all to our weekly podcast, Terry Currans, the Curran View with the Isle of Hillsborough. Mr. Terry Curran, steady away. What kind of week you had?
Oh, a bit busy one this week, been running up and down. Sheffield Wednesday winning and getting through to Wembley and having a chance now to go and get back into the Championship. Can they do it? We'll soon see on Monday.
We certainly will see on Monday. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later in the podcast. But first, Magic Moments. What have you sourced for us this week, T?
Well, I'm going for a save, Gabby.
Go on.
It could be the end of the season. I have mentioned the goalkeepers a couple of times, as you know, but I'm going for the reaction save on last night for Pope for Newcastle. Absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't see that, to be fair.
Brilliant. I know he's going to say it at him.
Yeah.
But you have to react to it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, you do, yeah.
He's got it and go with whatever his name was. Absolutely. He's got it. Beautiful volley and he's parried it out. So, and it looks like now that's given Newcastle the right to play Champions League football next season.
Yeah, they're definitely in the Champions League. Whether they're in third place or fourth place remains. Yeah, third or fourth remains to be seen, because United have got Chelsea Thursday, and then they've both got one game left. I think United might leapfrog them, but they're definitely in the Champions League. So well done to Newcastle.
Yeah.
Down the bottom, T, I thought it was a little bit strange, Dean Smith's selection last night, and although I didn't really see the game, so I was doing things, my understanding, and when I looked up and I watched little bits of it, Newcastle were on the ball and took the game to Leicester. I've seen them hit the post, I think, 2 or 3 times. I mean, they were very unlucky not to get the 3 points. Leicester very fortunate to get a draw and almost nicked it, as you say, with that shot at the end of the game. Fine margins.
Well, it's the worst Dean Smith performance I have seen. And I've seen a few games when he was at Walsall and Brentford. Villa, which I thought, he could make a name for himself. But he just sat back. I mean, They need to win. You can still attack, but, make sure that you pick defenders what can defend. And the midfield are able to support the front 2 or 3 or whatever you're going to play, yet still got the athleticism to get back in, and help the back 4, back 3, whatever way he goes. But, as the Premier League really killing our game in this country, because it is. The more I look at this, when you turned around and said the Premier League didn't start, I never really thought about it, because when it first came out and all the music and everything, the build up to it, I thought it really got me excited again about football. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
The advertisement of it. And I thought, wow. But it's just gone. I mean, what they've done, they've rewarded teams to finish 3rd and 4th and 2nd.
Yeah.
And team what stays up. And they're getting rewards, and I'm thinking, what have they won?
Absolutely nothing.
Right? It's only because the money is giving them there to play in the Champions League. And it's not a Champions League because they're not champions.
No.
And secondly, what they're doing is they're giving teams the opportunity to play in a league, which is a false league, because what it is, it's a league, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah. It's not a cup competition, it's an actual league.
It's a league.
Yeah, they've extended it, and we spoke about it on the podcast last week. Come the day...
You've always mentioned, you've always said this, and the more I look at this, the more you were right with it. And I started to hear more people talk about, football wasn't invented in 1992.
It was stolen.
It didn't the cup competition. It didn't the Champions. What's it called? Is it called Champions League or Champions?
Yeah, Champions League. It used to be the European Cup in old money. The Europa League is now.
That's what it is.
What was the UEFA Cup?
It's not a cup competition. They've made it a league competition.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, because it gives more money to the bigger clubs, and that's why they're extending it. But you can't extend it too much because you run out of weekends and weeks.
Answer me this, because you might be able to answer this better than me. How come this championship playoff, what I keep hearing, season in and season out, is worth more money than any other competition in the world?
Yeah, it's because of the riches.
What am I missing?
It's just because of the riches of the Premier League. I mean,
so you're telling me it turns more than somebody winning the Premier League, or the Champions League, or the World Cup? Is that what you're telling me? Or what people are telling us?
I think what they're saying is it's the most expensive game that's got most on it. Whereas, like, if you're looking at a European Champions League final or a European Cup final,
that, do they?
No, they don't. No, they don't. No, what
so
they're saying is
you've answered me what I was
looking
for.
They say it's £100 million game. Well, qualify what the Champions League final is worth in terms of prize money. Not as much, I'm guessing. But the thing is, to get that golden ticket now to get into the Premier League, they're all selling their souls to try and achieve that. And then when they get there, they defend with all their might to stay in there. And although there's always got to be jeopardy on a game of football, if it was like the Americans and there's no relegation, you would see a lot more dead rubbers, I guess, at the end of the season. But you probably have teams that are not frightened to go out and attack, express themselves, and try and win a game of football. It's the fear of losing that's killing the game for me.
I understand that, but you still wouldn't get that, Gabby. I guarantee you, because that's how coaches are. I've been in dressing rooms. They don't want to get beat 4 and 5-0.
Yeah.
I know where you're coming from. I know what you're saying. Look at Brentford.
Yeah.
Look at Brentford. In all my time as a kid, growing up, they were the 4th division team, as I would call it. We would call it now the Championship 1.
Yeah.
They've always been down in that. And look at them now, how they've established themselves in the Premier League.
They've done super.
With brilliant, that's what I'm looking for.
Recruitment, management, coaching.
Management of the club itself.
Yeah.
Right? And then they've added the recruitment, which have got right, a philosophy. Little Brentford, willing to take teams on, and go out to try and win a game.
As do Brighton. I mean, they've got Man City tomorrow. De Zerbi's took them on. And
look at Potter. Look at, is it O'Neill at Bournemouth?
Yeah, what a great job he's done, Gary O'Neill.
Right. The other manager, what's it called? Ex-Chelsea, Charlton player.
Ex-Charlton, yeah.
Midfield player, what's he called?
Yeah. His name will come to me. Oh my! He used to do the McDonald's advert, didn't he? Yeah. They were talking about him today. He's actually managed Bruges in the Champions League.
Yeah.
Oh my days!
Scotty
Parker.
Right, what I'm trying to say, he's blaming the owners. There's no money and all that. Everybody goes on about money. Believe in your players.
Yeah,
I never said his name.
Scotty Parker.
Power.
Scotty Parker.
Parker.
Yeah.
Scott Parker.
Yeah, that's the fella.
So when you look at it, whether you buy them players or not, that don't give you the right not to like people. Right? What gives you the right? It's the right. We've got to get the best out of them.
You're breaking
up
a bit too.
You've got to be able to work with people.
Have you got that phone by your ear? You're breaking up a little bit.
No, I've got it. I've got it when I'm speaking into.
It's a bit crackly tonight.
Is that better?
Yeah, you carry on. You just sound a bit crackly.
I was trying to make it more clear.
Oh, that's better. That is too. I don't know what you've done there.
Is that better?
Yeah, that sounds a lot better.
Well, I've got it on what they call it, speaker.
Don't put it. Was it on speaker before?
No.
And it's on speaker now?
Yes.
Blimey, you sound clearer now than what it was before.
Yeah, because if I don't put it on speaker, I can hardly get other people, me.
Oh,
okay. Whoever phones me up, if I don't put it on speaker, it's very faint.
Right, okay. Well, you do sound less crackly, so we'll
go
with that. We'll go with that too. My magic moments this week, talking of Brentford, I thought the fella's goal, what's his name? Abuma. Mboma, the lad.
He looked quite good the other day, didn't he?
Yeah, he's done well for a few seasons there with Ollie Watkins when Ollie was there, with Ivan Toney was
Yeah,
there. But I believe he's a Cameroonian. Is he Browne Boomer? But he scored a tremendous brace. His
yeah,
second goal in particular. But what I loved about the second goal was the slide rule pass by Hickey. I thought it was
yeah.
precision personified. It was absolutely tremendous. Harry Kane's goal was like a rapier missile
Let
into
me
the
just
top
interrupt.
corner.
Yeah, free kick. Yeah, let me just interrupt. I said to Thomas and Jock the other day, the game's what's been on.
Yeah.
Some quality passing, what's been
Oh,
killer balls, what's set goals up. It's been absolutely sublime. But I just wanted to give a goalkeeper my magic moment this
yeah.
week. But some of the passing for making up goals, what I saw last week, were absolutely sublime.
And also, I want to give a big shout out to Lee Gregory's dummy in that
Mm,
4-0 drubbing of Peterborough at Hillsborough. So we're going to
brilliant.
focus now for a few minutes on that game. I mean, it was a tremendous dummy, and I felt for Lee because he scored that own goal then in injury time, and as they were extra time, as they were coming off the pitch, one of the opponents says something. You don't know whether he was like taking the rise or saying, unlucky son, you know. We don't know. I can't lip read. But you just felt for him. Because, yeah, I thought, whenever I've watched Wednesday play, Lee Gregory always gives every last drop that he's got for the cause, and you could see his shoulders had sunk when he walked off that pitch. But when he walked off the pitch at the final whistle with that penalty, and gotta say, young Hunt, what composure to stick that in the top corner!
Yeah,
Fantastic penalties by Wednesday as well.
yeah. I mean, I'm not a penalty lover because obviously to see anyone get knocked out on penalties, I do feel sorry for that team and
Yeah,
the person if they miss because you know everybody's watching it. And,
yeah, they are.
so I look at it. Obviously, I want it to win, so I'll accept anything what comes our way.
What was the evening like for you? Because you had a reunion um, at the
Devonshire
Middle
Arms,
Hanley, wasn't it? Middle
yeah,
Hanley,
Devonshire Arms in
Devonshire.
Middle.
What was it like?
Well,
Because
we had a great. We met up at 2 o'clock. Roger Wilde, Brian Hornsby, Paul Bradshaw, Peter Eustace, Brian Joycey, Roger Wilde, um, Count Palmer were there, Imre Varadi, loads there. Absolutely a brilliant day. And John Tompkins and his wife Jackie put on a meal for the boys and everything. It was absolutely a fantastic day. I'd like to thank them for their hospitality and to get the result what we got. I mean, I look at when I saw that game,
yeah,
I was disappointed. But you don't see me. You've never seen me really criticising Wednesday
no,
because I look at it. All it does is cause more arguments. If she turns around and says this is bad, that's bad. The only time I really criticised them, or only time I have criticised them, when they appointed Tony Pulis. No to do with Tony Pulis. I didn't like the way we played football, and I didn't watch any matches when he took over.
mm,
But you look at the game against Peterborough, right? A complete first 2 goals, complete nightmare. I thought the keeper should have saved the first one.
yep,
Second one's got a deflection, but I still thought he could have got to it. But 4-0. Do you honestly think that they could win 4-0?
no,
That's an uphill task, but I'm a
mm,
big believer. And I always thought if you get one early doors, it gives you the chance. And
mm.
if you get 2-0 before half time, then let's see how they react to this. And just as I've said it, or I said it may happen, it did happen. And now we're 2-0 down.
Yeah,
Half time, he brings two players off, puts two defenders on. And I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe go in our favour this. Because you expect them to try and not to lose that game. They don't have to win it, do they? All they've got to do is
that's
make
for
sure
me.
that,
That for me is the dangerous part of any
yeah,
game. Going in not to lose it. I just find
that's
that so
how
dangerous.
important that it is when you sign defenders what can really defend.
Yeah,
You can try and teach them as much as you want, but at the end of the day, if they can't defend, they're going to make mistakes. When I look at this, they're 4-0 down, right? They get themselves back into it. They always look the dominant team throughout the game. They score in the 98th minute from a full back who's on practically the goal line.
Yeah.
Just maybe a yard off it, maybe 2 yards off it, right? In the 98th minute.
And
when
the
he's
header
given
was
6
from the
minutes.
centre half, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
right? You expect that is, it's gone into the 98th minute. He's given 6 minutes, right? The injury time is 6 minutes, and we score in the 98th minute. They've never looked like scoring, barring first. You can say first 8 minutes. They looked as though they wanted to do something. They just sat back. Then they go 5-4 up, and you think, has it drained the boys this or not?
Exactly.
No, it came back, and you said the penalties were absolutely brilliant. Great composure, and I'm glad we took them at the cop end and all, because we always seem to do, all teams, they'll have the cop end where, they always seem to score more goals in that end than the other end.
Yeah.
So when I look at it, I think sometimes you think to yourself, how have they done that? Is it fate, or, because to be 4-0 down, I knew somebody won £4,800. I know somebody was had £10 at 33 to 1 to qualify and to go on to win. Right? Roger Weil predicted, he said to everybody, and it's a wonder, I didn't do it, but he predicted that this will be 4-0 and win on penalties. I wonder what price that would have been. Because, you're talking there, it may be hopeful just thinking that way.
Yeah.
But, it's like the guy who had that £5 bet on Leicester to win Premier League. Yeah. And he win, what, 29,000 quid or something. Because you always get fans what'll have a couple of quid or a fiver on a result, on a daft result, really, because regardless what I think or whatever, and I were only hoping and I were believing that we still could do it. But when being realistic, you don't expect, to come back from a 4-0 down and qualify, do you?
No. I mean, it's a first, isn't it? I don't.
Well,
again, we didn't have playoffs back in the olden days, but certainly in the modern day of the playoffs, no team has ever come back from a 4-0 deficit. And I think you're right, too. If you look in the first leg of a two-legged game, if you're losing 4-0, that's a monumental ask to get firstly the 4 goals back, and then B, to go on and win it. So you've actually got to win 5, not 4. Yeah. So I mean, fantastic. Yeah. Again, going into the final
we
all
go on about injury time.
Yeah.
Just give 6 minutes.
And yeah, but they were doing a bit of time wasting, so we added that on as well. Yeah,
but sometimes you know as well as I do, it didn't always work that way, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Usually, they look at it and think, well, it's 96 minutes, it's worked in our favour, and by God, am I happy it's worked in our favour.
What was the atmosphere like in the pub with all the old boys? Were they all still there by that time?
Oh, not all of them, because some of them the game, someone going home to watch it, because obviously it's a long day. But I was stopping over, but there's still plenty of us in there. The pub, the uproar in the pub when we got back to 4 apiece. And then when it come to penalties, when they went on penalties, then everybody, even I got up dancing.
Well, again, you got to for Big Dave as well, Darren Moore. I mean, he's took quite a bit of unnecessary stick throughout the season, because at the end of the day, Sheffield Wednesday have had a tremendous season. They come third and got 96 points. Any other season, they'd have won the league. Won your league with 96. And, okay, at times, the football hasn't been pretty, I'm getting from some Sheffield Wednesday supporters. And it was very similar when he was at Wolverhampton Wanderers, at West Bromwich Albion. And I did say when he took over there, the jury was out with Big Dave. But the one thing that you will say about him, he is a believer, because he's a God-loving man, so he will always believe he's got the faith. And I do believe that he's one of the nicest guys in football. He really is a smashing kid. So to see him do so well, I thought it was fantastic.
I thought it was fun. Listen, we're 8 points clear with 2 games in hand.
Yep.
And we blow it.
Absolutely.
So, as long as fans are not being abusive to any manager, whether it's black, white, Chinese, whatever he is, as long as it's not being abusive to him, right? Now, I don't mind people saying, he's rubbish, because at the end of the day, they don't pay the wages, but they pay to go in. And they're entitled to an opinion, right? But it has been a great season, and like you've just said, 96 points, and you're not gone up. You just don't believe things can happen like that.
It's crazy.
But then again, you look at it, we're 4-0 down, right? And we get the result, what we don't expect, but we believed. Fans won't give up, But I'm not against people expressing their opinion as long as it's not being abusive.
Absolutely, 100%.
And that's listen, that's the only thing I don't like. You can turn around and say, I'm rubbish, whatever. That's okay. Because I get that. George Best is my favourite player. People will look at me and say, well, he can't lace Messi's boots, or he can't lace Maradona, or Ronaldinho, or Ronaldo. I get that. I just tell you that's my favourite player of all time.
Yeah.
And I've seen him all. Doesn't mean that he's the best. I tell you, it's my opinion. So as long as it's not abusive to any manager, you never see me being abusive to Tony Pulis. I just say to him, like I said to Jack, I don't like that way of playing football, so I don't want to watch it.
Absolutely. There's a way of playing football, a way that certain teams play football. I turn the telly off, and it's all about your philosophy and trying to win a game. Winning games, Manchester City won more than anybody in the Premier League this season. Champions, he rested 9 players. That bench was worth, I don't know, something like £500 million, wasn't it? I mean, what superstars he had on the bench. And I would have done exactly the same. Well, I did put a post up. It doesn't matter what 11 he picks, they're still quality. They play some brilliant football.
If you watch their academy teams, they all play the same way.
Exactly.
So when they go into the first team, or they go and play higher up, one of the higher teams, teams what? Come on, Moss, come into my bloody head.
What's that?
If you're playing a level up, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't make a difference. They always look comfortable, whatever team they play in those players.
Absolutely.
And they're all comfortable on the ball. I have never seen a Manchester City player yet under Guardiola what's never been comfortable on the ball.
You won't buy him. I mean, he simply won't. He won't have him in his club, no matter whether that first team, youth team, whatever. If you can't play football, if you can't pass the ball, if you can't do what Pep wants you to do, you ain't getting a shirt, mate. He don't want you, because he will only buy certain players.
What makes me laugh with a lot of people when they criticise Pep, the midfield players, we know midfield players will be comfortable on the ball, and he's not trying to play one as a centre back, a full back, out wide, left or right. He has that belief.
What did you do there? You've just muted yourself, ain't you?
Can you hear me?
I can now. Yeah, but you went dead quiet for about 60 seconds.
You just can't believe how he gets these players to play under pressure without a blink of an eye.
Absolutely. And he knows when to move players out and who to move in. It looks as though good. I think he's 32, isn't he?
It's you what's gone off again, Gabby.
McAllister, he's certainly looking at bringing in McAllister from Brighton. I think he'd be a perfect fit.
Where's he going to play?
Well, he'll play in Gundogan's position because Gundogan will go, so he'll.
Well, what about not Grealish, the other kid, Foden?
Hold on.
I mean, I think it's your phone what keeps going on. If Phillips in, he's played about 5 games this year, hasn't he?
I don't think Phillips is good enough to play in that Man City team, and
Yet,
I think he was
that kid who you
surprised.
just mentioned at Browne
I think he's a
looks
good player.
he looks a star.
I like him,
Right.
McAllister.
All I'm trying to say is Phillips. I mean, I was surprised that he bought Phillips.
I was.
I was, and I still think Phillips was a good player for Leeds, and he helped keep them and get them up and keep them up there. But what I'm trying to say is, he's never going to put. He's never going to get what they call his place.
No, Rodri, no chance.
Haaland and the other kid, what the Argentinian. I mean, he's an unbelievable player. He can't get in team.
Yeah. Again,
So,
he's got options on the bench, and that's what Pep does. He'll look at moving probably 2, 3, maybe 4 out in the close season, and then he'll bring 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 in that are very similar, that just slot into that position that he wants them to play, because he's identified them and he knows what they can do, and he will only bring in a certain player to play in a certain way that fits his philosophy and the way that he wants to play
and
football.
you just hit the nail on the head, because that's what it is, the philosophy.
Absolutely.
I shake my head and I laugh when I listen to these pundits. Some of them have been good players. Some have been great players. When they turn around and say, "You ain't got a plan B," his plan A is that good, right? You don't have to work on plan B. No. We want to work on plan B. Our coaches want to, and our pundits want to work on plan B, right? Instead of improving plan A. And exactly. How do you improve plan A? Get better quality players, get players what do panic on the ball or under pressure, get good players what can pass the ball with an accuracy of 98% like Manchester City. When you play that team, some teams must think, Christ almighty, we're never going to get the ball. But I wonder why they never get the ball.
Exactly. But again, if it's not working, if a player isn't having a particularly good game or is having a bit of an ineffective game, for instance, Jack Grealish, it might not be Jack's day for whatever reason, he'll pull Jack off and he'll pull Foden on, or he'll start with Foden, he'll pull Phil off and he'll put Jack on. He'll have Mahrez, he'll have Silva. He'll just rotate his players, and he knows that they're not all going to be.
But every one of them you've just mentioned, a quality of passing.
Absolutely.
A quality under pressure.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was about 3 years ago or 2 years, maybe 3 years ago, when I said to you, do you just look, when you found Jack in the position at left back at Villa, how composed he's on the ball.
Absolutely. He never gives rarely gives a
people
ball
always say, not people, but Jack would say to me, are you listening to me? I said, Jack, I can repeat word for word what you said. Right? So I look at everything and analyze everything. You know, what's going to make a good team? I don't sign players, and I would say to be director of football on my own, look, this is the player I'm looking for. Right? Now, I don't want a big lad what's just going to boot it. Then I got to say to myself, well, I've just told Gabby, I've got to be able to work with him. Well, it's no good working with that type of player, because you're never going to be able to improve that type of player.
Absolutely.
But I still wouldn't treat him like some managers do. You know, and that's the difference between me and some managers who I played under. And the best ones I played under always won trophies, Cloughie and Howard Kendall.
Absolutely. Book corner in association with myfootballbooks.com too. Andy usually gives us a recommendation, but he's been very busy this week, and I'm going to do all three. By the way, our most recent podcast, our football book corner with Andy from myfootballbooks.com, is out now. 90 minutes plus extra time of talking football books. So first up this week, T, the Forgotten Cup, the history of the Mitropa Cup, mother of the Champions League, from 1927 to 1940. By Joe Araf. Joe is an Italian journalist. It's his second book. I've been interacting with Joe this week. Big international fan, so he's very much looking forward to the Champions League final when his team, International, play Manchester City. But the Forgotten Cup is the story of the Mitropa Cup, 1927 to 1940, all those years ago. I mean, what a fantastic competition that was, the forerunner to the European Cup.
And I've never heard of this. And that's what I'm saying about things like this. What you bring to the football fans is absolutely brilliant, because you put everything.
And to listen to the rest of this podcast, head on over to www.patreon.com/SRB Media. Thank you.